3 to 6-year-olds, we need a slightly different approach when it comes to the 6 to 12-year-olds. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that works. But I also want to iterate here that in these environments, some of the kids who are in this environment haven't had 3 or 4 years of working at the peace table to work things out. So they don't have that indirect preparation. So what is going on here right now is a combination of the kinds of things that were done with the 3 to 6-year-olds because they need that experience, but with the orientation necessary for a child with an older way of perceiving things. So it's going to be a little bit, we just twisted things a little, tweaked things here over, and to try to make it all work and come out together. The first thing that is important in an elementary environment and in an environment where the kids are not coming up from where they all were in the same environment with one another but between the time they were 2.5 until they were 6, and now they're just moving up into a new environment. But most of these kids are kids that they've known all their lives. If it's not like that, we have to first and foremost establish trust. If you don't feel safe, you are not going to be able to honestly express yourself, to honestly express your emotions, and that's part of what you have to do to solve your problems. So there are a lot of different kinds of activities that happen in order to begin to build trust in an environment. First and foremost is the nature of the adult in the environment. The adults really have to be modeling the behavior that they want to see. They really need to be treating each child with trust, and in the 6 to 9 environment, absolutely fairly and equally. Because it's really hard for them to understand, well, this is okay for this child because they have these different issues going on, and this is okay for this other child because they have these other issues going on. They will get those subtleties. And the younger ones are much more accepting because they aren't at that sensitive period for fairness. So there is just a lot of work that goes on every day, reiterating in a proactive way how we treat each other. I mean, I've sat in at various circle times here, and I constantly hear the adults just reiterating how we treat each other with respect, how we can trust each other, rather than focusing on those times when it's not happening. It's just reminding and reminding and reminding. It's like repetition of the activity that goes on in primarily in a group setting, but always also goes on every time things occur on a one-to-one basis. So that it's building that trust. And again, that respect, the respect of one another, the respect of the environment, that is absolutely key. And I think no matter what your past has been, when you are in a situation where you feel somebody is truly honoring you, is truly respecting you, that does something that changes how you feel in relationship to that person. So each of the guides in these classrooms is really holding that respectfulness for themselves, respectfulness for one another, and respectfulness for the children as the primary element that comes forth. And so it may be, especially in the beginning of the year, there will be more work on respect than there will be on addition. But without the respect, the addition isn't going to happen comfortably anyway. And so, especially when you're beginning a new school and you're beginning a classroom with a mix of kids who have had come from a variety of different backgrounds, this building up of respect is just an essential part of the process. And I don't know, do you want to speak to some of the activities that you guys have done and
With respecting?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and one of the golden rules of our classroom, which I didn't expect, it always ends up, you come up with tons of rules and you boil it down to 2 or 3, and it's very similar about respecting the environment and the people and yourself and, those kinds of things. But one of the things we keep coming back to in our class is this question of, like, do you have to be friends with everybody in class? Because people will get in fights or they don't want to work with each other, and we talk about that a lot because there isn't, that's not an easy answer, because our answer always, we come back to that, no, you don't have to be friends with everybody in class, but if you don't want to spend time with someone, is that okay? And then they're always like, well, no, we should always be friends with everybody, and well, that's so hard, there's so many in our class, and people are so different, and so it's taken, just maybe 2 weeks ago, we finally come up with, that you don't have to be friends with everyone, but everyone gets a baseline of respect, so that if there's someone totally different than you in class, or they're a very different age, or everything about them, the way they approach life is totally different, that's fine, and you don't have to spend a lot of time with them, but when you do, that time is always respectful, no matter if if your differences are too many to count, that's great, and you can honor that, but you also need to show baseline respect for everybody. And that one, beyond all the other rules about being safe with your body and kind with your words, those ones we come up with right away. But that one has been really, really fun to track, seeing how they finally, somebody just said something just like that last week. And of course, I could say it a million times, but that doesn't matter. Once they say it, they're really like, oh, that's really interesting. So that's been a really awesome journey to go on this year.
Yeah. And I think that what that brings up is, again, when it comes to rules, each classroom in the elementary comes up with that some places call it their constitution, others it's their guidelines, others it's their pledge to one another, but it's a participation of the entire group in, okay, what are the ground rules? What are the things that we need to have in this classroom environment to make it safe, to make it a good learning environment, and to make it a place where everybody is respected and treated fairly? So, what is that going to look like? And so each classroom's rules will be slightly different, because they will be the composite of the thoughts and ideas of all of the individuals within that environment. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, sort of collaborative inquiry kind of things that I've done with adults, where they participate in coming up with the ground rules. And again, this is something that makes them feel like it's fair. If they come up together with what the rules are, well, you kind of, if you said that was how it was going to work, you kind of have to abide by that, because you bought into it. You participated. You put your stuff in there. So it changes consequences from being something that's comes from above, the authority, the teacher standing there, you're in trouble, this is what's going to happen to you, to something that's much more, hey guys, this is something we all agreed to. We all said this was what we were going to do, and this is what was going to happen if it wasn't adhered to. So it very much more becomes the responsibility of each individual in the group to live up to the behaviors that have been set, and to accept the consequences if they don't. And I think that makes a really big difference. So we already talked a little bit about specific techniques in the primary, the kind of modeling, role-playing, how you learn the language of nonviolence at the peace table. But then something that's really unique to the elementary environment is it's sort of like a Native American gathering of the elders. And different classrooms do this differently. But usually once a week they have a group meeting. And during the week,